Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show. And now, here's Jeff Crilley.
Welcome back to the Jeff Crilley Show. I was a worker bee for 25 years. I was an employee at different TV stations around the country, most recently Fox 4, and we got an employee handbook, and none of us ever read it. But now that I'm an employer, I understand the value of having, great counsel when it comes to coming up with the rules. My guest is Donna Meek. She's with Staff One. Welcome to the Jeff Crilley Show.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, it seems like it's gotten more difficult, more confusing for a small business owner. Let's take our last guest, the Mystical Coffee people. I mean, they may be experts in roasting a fine cup of coffee, but they may not be experts in managing a team or healthcare plans. And is that where your company comes in?
Yes, absolutely. Staff One is a professional employer organization, and what that means is we partner with small to mid-sized businesses to help them with all of the employment regulations and with HR compliance, with all the payroll and tax administration benefits and all this new Affordable Care Act stuff, the compliance that they have to deal with, and even risk management and workers' compensation. So anything that has to do with that overall HR solution, Staff One can manage and help that small business owner get back to doing what they do best, and that's running their business.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Affordable Care Act, because we've heard about it for years now, but I don't even think most employers, small or large, completely understand it. Do they?
Not entirely. They have a lot of misunderstanding about what exactly they're supposed to be doing. Some of them are still in denial as to what they're supposed to do. And, for the most part, everyone has to do something. They don't have the opportunity to say, okay, this doesn't affect me because of my size. Right. It's just that they don't really know what they're supposed to do. And I've found over the last two years, it's been a lot of fun just being able to help people understand not only the Affordable Care Act, but that's given me the opportunity to talk to them about other things and to understand actually what their labor costs are, what is involved in running their business, and why every year does it cost me more and more money. Right. What is it that I can do to keep that from happening in the future? So with the Affordable Care Act, of course, that's brought everything to the surface. They know exactly now that they got to start paying attention. Right. And that's opened up the doors for the rest of their unemployment costs, their workers' compensation cost. It's opened it up for them to look at every aspect of what they do, because now they're trying to figure out into their budget what it is they have to come up with. What else do they have to charge their clients in order to have enough money to offer benefits to their employees? So it's been a lot of fun just educating them, but it is very complex, and to be a small business owner these days, it's very difficult.
Donna Meek is my guest. She's with Staff One. Let's talk a little bit about social media, because I know employers and employees always butt heads on this, but an employee going off recklessly talking on their Facebook or Twitter can cause some real harm for the company, can it not?
It can, yes. And this is one of the areas that over the last couple of years also has been kind of a hot topic for our industry, because we get a lot of employers who will say, I just don't know how to handle this. One of my employees has been talking about one of our customers on Facebook. Right. And I don't really even know how to talk to them about it or reprimand them, or, maybe they need to be let go as an employee. How do I handle that appropriately? And so those are the things that in the handbooks that you were talking about in the very beginning conversation here, that we can address. We can put some things in the handbook that helps that business owner know how to talk about that in the beginning when they hire the employees, because let's face it, social media is a big deal these days. Right. And the employee may not know that there was something wrong with what they said. Maybe they were just kind of talking about their day or putting a message out there, but maybe it was insulting to somebody. Right. And that's the things they have to be careful about.
When I was at Channel 4, I was constantly reminded that you represent the TV station on and off the air. and I was keenly aware that what I said on social media, even retweeting something or lending my endorsement to something, could have repercussions for my job. So what would you advise a business owner to do if they don't have a handbook? They're kind of running it by the seat of their pants.
Well, I would advise any small to mid-sized business owner to outsource their HR, and doing it to outsourcing to a professional employee organization like Staff One allows them to consolidate all of their vendor relationships into one. Doesn't mean they have to totally replace some of their vendors, but maybe they consolidate it so that everything is kind of in sync, that every piece of that is talking to each other.
Right.
And so their benefits and the payroll is all kind of together, so all this Affordable Care Act reporting can be done. And then I would encourage them to take a look at that, because most of the time they're spending that amount of money even as much as they would if they were outsourcing.
Right.
So there's not really a big difference in the cost.
So instead of roasting coffee and paying attention to what they should be doing, they're managing and going through booklets, and
Yes.
it's just a waste of their time.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about contractors versus full-time employees. I know Uber's kind of in a mess right now, aren't they?
Yes. Recently, I actually got to contribute to an article in Fortune magazine. It was pretty exciting. I got a call, and they asked for some expertise on how do we calculate what it would cost to transition an employee or transition a 1099 contractor into an employee. There are a lot of industries that are facing this today, and it's not just Uber. That's just been a hot topic. I think I saw an article in Fortune magazine, Forbes. It's been everywhere, the conversation about Uber having to go to employees from contractors. There's a lot of cost involved in that. There's a lot of things that they have to consider. Of course, benefits, employer taxes, workers' compensation. They have to change their whole mindset of what they've been doing today as a contractor to an employee. But on the other side, as an employee, they're going to have benefits that they didn't have before. They're going to have career development paths that they may not have had before. There's all kinds of things and opportunities that it creates for the employee as well.
Right. Well, to talk about some other things that small business owners maybe are not dealing with, but they absolutely have to. Small business owners don't normally like to deal with HR. Mm-hmm. Having to come up with a process for hiring employees, what does that process look like so that it doesn't cost them more money, so that they can retain that employee, and then development programs, for their employees. Those are things that usually they just don't have the time to deal with, and they don't have the resources to do that. So I think that in itself is probably one of the biggest things that I see that's not being handled within a business is their HR. And their business is suffering from it because they're having to hire more employees, the turnover factor, and in turn that costs them more money with their unemployment. There's all kinds of reasons why they need to focus on that. And with all the new regs, there's about 854 new regulations. Really?
Yes. So.
And if you ignore this, if you put your head in the sand, you could go out of business, couldn't you? Because there could be some fines associated with not complying with some of these regulations. Yes,
definitely. And they don't. It's not that the business owner is trying to do something wrong. I was a small business owner for 15 years. And I was so wrapped up in running my business and trying to figure out, how to grow the business and to make more money, that I didn't have time to think about what new regulation had just been passed that I had to do within my business. I would think, I'd read it, I'd hear about it, and I'd say, okay, yeah, we'll think about that later. We'll get to that later. And that's one of the things I never did get to. And I know that's the same thing that happens to business owners. Not that they're trying to avoid the law or do something wrong. It's just that they don't have the time or the expertise. And it's very complicated to be able to try to understand some of those regulations.
Okay, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach us through our website at staff1.com, Or you can, of course, on our website that has our email addresses for business consultants in the area. And we do free complimentary business cost analysis.
Oh, that's
great.
Yeah,
so for a business, it's a very educational tool. It allows them to be able to look at what their current costs are compared to what it would cost them to consolidate their vendor relationships. So it's a very simple process to go through, and it's very insightful.
Absolutely. Donna Meek with Staff One, thank you so much for joining us on the Jeff Crilley Show. This was a fast 15 minutes.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. When we come back, it is a ghoulish job, some would say, but somebody's got to do it. We're coming up on Halloween. One of the more unusual occupations that you might find here in Dallas-Fort Worth is coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show.